welcome everybody. This is we kind of an ongoing series here of group therapy presentations we've had going on for the last couple months. We're excited about this one. Josh Gross is going to really kind of wow us today with the group screen. I think this is particularly important because I work at a VA hospital, and a lot of folks here, what do they do as a group screen? They just call somebody for a couple minutes, right? That's it. And I think, as we can see, that can be troublesome. You don't really know the veteran very well, or the patient or the client, and if that's the case. And I think it's really important we have to kind of really screen them out. I attended a consultation yesterday with Josh, and we really kind of learned the importance of the group leader and how important that position is. I think I take it for granted sometimes, and I kind of forget what are the role we have and who we bring into our group, right? It's not only is this person a good fit for themselves, but are they a good fit for the group? Are they going to add to the group? Could they potentially be dangerous to the group? It's a lot to kind of consider as we kind of think about the group screen. So anyway, welcome everybody, and I'd like to hand it over to Deborah now. I was just saying a few words and welcome everybody, Deborah.
Okay, great. Hi. Good day, everybody. My name is Dr. Deborah Sloan. I've met some of you before. Welcome to our Lunch and Learn today. And it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. Josh Gross, who's an originating member and the founder, really, of our Florida Group Psychotherapy Society. And he serves as the Director of Group Programs at the University Counseling Center at FSU. Josh has practiced group therapy since his earliest training as a psychologist, with more than 40 years experience running and teaching group therapy to therapists of every mental health profession. Today he'll be talking about starting and replenishing therapy groups and the role of the leader in these activities. And it is our extreme pleasure to have him with us, and we'll send it over to him. Take it away, Josh.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. I'm not using PowerPoint today. I'm talking to you so I can look at you while I talk to you, and I encourage you to do the same with me. I think this is a very personal activity, and the feelings are more important than the facts, and I think getting a sense about the role and the tasks, I think, are really central to this. So I've called this the group screen, Strategies for Initiation and Replenishment of Group Interventions. And this is at the skill level of the basic practitioner, the generalist, because I want to review a lot of very basic things. And I hope to actually, over the next year, do a series of basic skills for the practitioner regarding ethics, initiation of a group, and a variety of other things. So we get started with the idea that group therapy is a structural intervention, in that we control access, time, rules, context, and purpose of the intervention. And it's in the therapist who's running it must inherently take responsibility for its impact in those on our care and those whom we receive referrals from. So in this context, group screen is probably the most single important intervention that's going to make or break the group. When we start a new group, we do a series of group screens as we acquire our first, early, and later members. With each additional increasing member, our understanding of membership and composition of a developing group as a whole advances. So when I start with a fantasy, a goal, an idea, whatever you want to call it. But I want to do a group for grad students, and I want it to be on Tuesday, and I want it to be at this time. Now, are all grad students the same? No. And are all groups the same? No. So I have to begin to make some determinations about what I'm doing and what I'm going for. The group screen, regardless of the type of group you're constructing, is a focus on the fit, the balance of a potential member with others, because our goal is the formation of a high-performance, small working group. Talking therapy generally occurs around 7, 8, 9 members. Sometimes with psychoeducational groups, we'll go a little larger. But generally speaking, high performance, groups that the therapist can keep an eye on, engage with, have some sense of a larger group discussion that's a microcosm of the larger society. This is generally run at about 7 or 8, 9 members. So now we're going to pause and make a distinction between two general types of therapy groups. We have psychoeducational groups, and they are designed around a curriculum that has educational goals for members and are uniformly designed as time limited because they follow a specific series of learning events and discussions to achieve their therapeutic impact. We often think of psychoeducational groups as homogeneous for symptoms. So in many ways, these are groups that are centered around a population who all have similar issues. Psychoeducational groups, being homogeneous, form cohesion pretty quickly. And there's a lot of benefit immediately derived from being around other people who got what I got. You can look around that room in your first meeting and you can see, wow, all the left-handed people who've been oppressed by not having left-handed scissors in all those years of public school. Left-handed people get together and they have a certain experience that's really different than the majority right-handed person. So psychoed groups have a homogeneous selection and they're about a symptom. Frequently not a left-handedness, frequently something like shyness and social anxiety, managing anxiety, sleep problems, diet, weight control, health promotion. They're generally set up around an idea. Psychoeducational groups carry a membership for a series of meetings that follow that curriculum. So when you're selecting for a psychoeducational group, you start a process one day, and when you get to your 7th, 8th, or 9th member, you can start your group. You keep people in the queue while you're doing screenings. It's fairly typical for a group therapist to have a group in motion, and you're selecting for people, but you haven't yet met. Process groups, same way. We call them process groups because they have no curriculum or outline for content. Each group is its own event, and over time, themes and content areas become weekly group discussion. And these groups are best established with a selection strategy of heterogeneity. That is, lots of different problems and symptoms with a cohort who share similar capacities for articulation, impulse control, insight, and resilience. So these are really two strategies, and as you can see, in one, we're looking for people who all have the same issue, and we're going to give them some basic instruction about how to better adapt with that, and we're going to offer some discussion. Nina Brown, my friend and the author of the classic book, Psychoeducational Groups, stresses that psychoeducational groups have lots of psychological processing. They're just formed around a given problem area. And when we have heterogeneity, like a men's group or a women's group or a group for people who are anxious or a group for people with sleep issues, what happens is very powerful. They all come together and get a sense of, these are my people, these are my circumstances. The duration of a group like this is in some ways sacrificed for the intensity of similarity. These groups don't really last a really long time, and they're rarely made open-ended, because if you're doing a 12-week shyness and social anxiety, you're going to have a build-up to a graduation event where some kind of activity will occur where people will be able to see plainly that they've made some advances. Those groups come to an end. We have a population of students at our counseling center where we run a lot of groups who go and cycle through psychoeducational groups. They like those. Process groups are really different. They're designed to have specific levels of membership to curate a specific intensity of feedback for the membership. So for instance, with a first-time process group member, they may do better in a group that's more supportive and gentle in its inquiry and format rather than being what I would call fast. I like, if I can, to have a range of groups that are moving pretty quickly, which are a lot of direct feedback, but also to have some groups available to me where someone who is first exploring an issue, perhaps a trauma has become clear that it is a significant life impacting event, and they do a little better in a more gentle and easygoing group. So we can divide ourselves between process groups and psychoeducational. And then in our process groups, we can ramp up the level of intensity. We have a lot of options. University Counseling Center is running 34 groups this semester. That enables us to have lots of psychoeducational groups and lots of process groups at varying levels. We're in the 4th week. We've had sort of a slow start. Our referrals have really picked up last week and this week. I imagine our groups will be full within a couple of weeks. Group therapists network just like Florida Group Psychotherapy Society, because there's people on this call I've referred to, and there's people on this call I've gotten referrals from. And one of the things that group therapists do a lot more than individual therapists is they're dependent upon the other groups in their community. So Florida Group Psychotherapy Society really makes sense, particularly now when we're doing telehealth, where someone in Fort Myers can get a referral from someone in Pensacola, and it can be useful. How long we will be continuing in telehealth, I'm not sure. My personal belief is it works too well, and the genie will never go back in the bottle. I think we'll be doing telehealth from this point forward. It's too efficient, it's too effective, and it's good enough. All new potential members need group screen because our job is to make a formal assessment of the goodness of fit for both the potential new member and the existing group that may receive them. So much of what we know about research on group success and failure turns on this pivotal engagement with a new person. You really can't do group properly unless you do screenings. The group screens where you get to see the individual you're considering, and you get to engage with them in ways that will help you figure out what it is you need to know. In this regard, group screens are informed by the story of the context you are facing in this situation and are best seen as individual situations with their own demand characteristic defined by the situation at hand. You've got a group that has an opening, and you have an individual who would like to join your group. A referral of your own well-known individual case in your caseload to your own group that's well-known to you because you run it, that's an easy transition. Chances are over time you've been looking at that individual and you've been giving them hints and you've been shaping them to consider the idea that maybe they do well in group. And then one day when you have an opening, you pitch the idea to them. A group screen can occur in a regular visit with someone whom you see. It's your group, it's your case, you know what's going on. A lot of us refer to our own groups. An alternate referral scenario can come when a colleague's referring their well-known case to me because they're familiar with my work and they have another case they want to send. Group screens need to occur because I want to meet the potential new member and I need to verify myself who they are, what they're like, and how they may well fit in the group that I'm presently considering them for. I commonly receive referrals that I already know will be a good
sure somebody who really, speak well and do well on camera
Could we mute that, please? Thank you. I commonly receive referrals that I know will be a good fit because of my rapport with the referral source and our many years of working together. I've been at Florida State 20 years. Nonetheless, I always do group screens with my interns because that's my opportunity to really model. I may have a sense about where it's going, but I don't want to skip the process. My interns need the experience of conducting group interviews and assessing the goodness of fit, even if I know that it's probably going to go well. Over the course of the training year, I move this responsibility from me to my interns. And by second semester, spring, most of them are going to be making those decisions themselves. We gain our experience by making decisions and living with them. Errors of over-inclusion, errors of under-inclusion. Successive approximation is the way we learn. There's nothing better than a mentored apprenticeship, which is what we do at Florida State. My interns spend a year with me, 50 meetings in a process group. That's about 75 hours of group time. And that's bookended with a half-hour supervision before and after, as well as an hour weekly supervision of group with the 4 interns, and a monthly doc internship meeting on group psychology and group psychotherapy, where I teach them the principles course. Different types of groups need different types of selection and preparation. Psychoeducational groups are generally time-limited, curriculum-based, and focused around a central theme or symptom. Process groups are called that because we have no agenda. We talk about what comes up in the discussion and that which is curated under the direction of the group facilitator. Group therapists need to know what they are doing with their intervention plan and then select members accordingly. If we are selecting for individuals who are suffering the same challenges with similar symptoms, we know that group will gain cohesion more quickly and that the discussions around the similarities will cause the group to have an apparent ease of discussion. It will move through developmental stages of norming, storming, boarding a little more quickly than a process group, because the task of identifying who you are and why the heck you're here is already dealt with. We're all here because we have a sleep problem. Those same similarities are going to cause the group to have a life duration that is limited because we talk about the topic. The assumption is not at the close of the group everyone will have resolved all of their symptoms, but as the group comes to a close, people get a sense of resolution and they knew they were going to be in a time-limited group right from the beginning because we're very frank about that. Process groups, we're selecting for individuals, we're dealing with a variety of life issues, but we want similarities in levels of articulation, intelligence, conviviality, and impulse control. And if we have that, we can easily merge a wide variety of experiences into the discussion of the life challenges faced by members. So a psychoeducational group's about what I got, and a process group is how the heck did it get to be this way? Very different tasks. And to some extent, we really need to know the difference when we plan the intervention. The literature is pretty strong. We have a new book that just came out in 2000. This is published by American Group Psychotherapy Association. If you're going to buy a book, I'd buy this book. The Core Principles of Group Psychotherapy is the manual for the 15-hour Principles of Group Psychotherapy course. I ran that for some time. Misha, who's on the phone here, on the call with us now, runs that program for American Group Psychotherapy Association. This is a really good manual, and it covers just about everything you'd need to know. Shameless plug for the College Counselor's Guide for Group Psychotherapy. You don't have to be a college counselor to want to look at this book. This book is about as comprehensive a book as there is. We started all of the issues with multidisciplinary, diversity, socioeconomic disparity. A lot of the issues that are hot politics right now in 2020 are in this book and dealt with. This is sort of another standalone comprehensive book in group psychology, group psychotherapy. I'd recommend people be thoughtful about those. Green and Kaklauskas in the principles book make the distinction clearly that decisions need to be considered from a dual perspective, that of the individual candidate that we're considering and the group that we're going to put them in. The group that we're going to put them in is really our group composition decision. And what goes on in the interview with them is, are they going to fit in that, and how will it affect my group composition? So they really stress that this is a bilateral phenomenon, a point I keep making over and over again, because you need to know your group and you need to know your potential new member. Group psychology and group psychotherapy were just recently accredited as a treatment intervention by the American Psychological Association. We pulled that off in 2019 after about 20 plus years trying to put petitions through, and finally got that made. One of the most fundamental points made in the petition is that group therapy must initiate with group screens, because if you don't know who you're bringing in your group, it's not going to work well. And if your group is not ready to receive a new member, it's not going to work well. I gave you a couple of articles that I think are helpful. The one about marking a place in group is about the idea of group developmental stage, and that groups go through, in the Tuckman model, norming, storming, boarding, and adjourning. When we refer someone back to a group tends to regress back to the norming, because all of a sudden we have a stranger in our midst, and the group has to kind of catch them up before all the sense of comfort and belonging and trust that had been established prior to the idea. When we're going to bring in a new member, we got to talk about that with the group, and we have to assess the group's readiness to receive someone. Because many of us have brought up the idea of bringing in a new member, and it's like, nah, we don't want a new member. Now, who's running the group? Is the leader running the group, or the members running the group? Now, none of us want to live in an authoritarian group, and we don't want to be bossed around by our group therapist. Our group therapist has to have some sense of reasonable connection with us. But I also believe strongly that the group therapist must be the one who's making the decisions about what happens. And many a group doesn't want a new member when they really need one. A great example of this is a group that is beginning to shrivel, desiccate, die. The Grim Reaper's in the corner haunting the group leader. You've got 5 members, but you've only got 3 today because 2 didn't show. Now you're busy over-involving yourself as chatty group leader, which you're doing to keep the group alive. Of your 3, 1 responds by withdrawing, and then 1 responds by becoming overly manic and active. Your group's an unpleasant experience. Clearly, that room needs a couple of more people. Group therapists need to watch their groups, be mindful of process issues and content issues, and think about the importance of how my group is functioning within my larger society. Systems theorists call this isomorphy, that there are similarities between systems in smaller, larger, and larger. So cities have issues that counties have, and counties have issues that states have, and states have issues that countries have. And so there's all of these kind of levels. We want to be sure that we're well aware of what's happening in our society and what's happening in our group, to note the issues in both, and to be thoughtful about how this informs our selection and our preparation decisions. My colleague Marcy Turner writes in her piece on the group screen in the College Counselor's Guide that you really want to talk about group therapy's purpose, so that the potential member will understand that. Issues of confidentiality, what group norms are about, and expectations for what this is going to be like, and what in my first meeting and what it might like to be in subsequent sessions. I gave you two pieces. The first one about the life cycle in a group. The reason I gave that to you, it's a very quick read. It's just a couple of pages. And it gets you thinking about how groups can portray to you their readiness for a new member. And when they are ready for a new member, to be thoughtful about what developmental stage the group is in as you contemplate adding someone, what it does to them when you talk with them about adding someone, what happens when you bring the person in, and how quickly the group recovers. All of these processes need to be at the hand of the therapist who needs to be aware of them. Sometimes groups go into a tumble when you bring someone in and you need to kind of do some repair and support work. Sometimes you bring someone into a group and it goes fabulous. Group therapists need to be prepared for all of these. The second piece I gave you is my checklist for starting a new group, which is essentially 9 points we really want to make. So the first thing we want to know is when the group's going to meet and start. You got to have a clear-cut idea about that. What to expect in the first meeting and those that will follow. If you have not been in group therapy before, you just don't really know what's going to happen. So here's what I do. I just tell everybody, if we've gotten to the point in the group interview where I feel like this is a good candidate, and I've got my secret code worked out with my intern, and we're doing that too, so both of us are agreeing. And yes, we're doing this on Zoom, so it's a 3-person Zoom. We got the candidate, we got the 2 of us. We decide we're going to bring them in. Now we begin our preparation. Well, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to end up in a Zoom waiting room. And that's just where you'll be. And then at some point, one of us will open the room up and you'll come join us. And you're going to see 5, 6, 7 other individuals. We are going to start by going over the rules. We always do the rules. This is a very important ritual. And the rules are how we make clear to existing members that the new member is inculcated well, to the new member that I'm going into something that's a tradition because they went through this too. The same rules always. Confidentiality is the most important part, and it's been impacted since we've been doing telehealth. I like to say that everyone has the right to tell anybody that they are in treatment and that they are in group. But if you're in group with other people. So do you know the difference between something you have said and something someone else has said? And most everyone nods their head because it's a dumb question, but I think dumb questions are really helpful. Because here's the rule. You can tell anybody that you come to group therapy, and you can tell anybody what you say in group therapy. But anything you hear from another group member, you can't ever repeat to anybody until you're dead. And then you still can't do it. Do you know the difference between something you've said and something someone else has said? And I tell you, pretty much everyone at a college campus recognizes this. And I think you'd have to probably be dealing with some fairly ill people to have them not be able to grasp that. So again, group therapist has to be competent to understand who he's dealing with. When I get that agreement, I feel pretty good about that. The plain message that we keep the secret forever. That's very important. And the clear idea that I can tell a secret and it'll be secure. I've been doing groups since the 70s. I don't have too much leakage. I always end up inculcating people this way. It becomes an honor phenomenon. Nobody wants to give up the quality of the group. The experience is too rich. It's too valuable. And if we inculcate them from the beginning with clarity about us having firmness about our boundaries, and that we can see stuff and smell stuff and sense stuff, our group members will be they will be enhanced in their ability to connect to the group because they can trust us. So the first thing we always do is talk about confidentiality. That's confidentiality of identity, of content of what we speak. Our second concern is our confidentiality of identity. Tallahassee, small town. A lot of people come here to the school. So, we have a big Publix near campus. We call it Club Publix because there's a lot of club activity that goes on in those frozen food sections. So we just call it Club Publix. 2 students end up at Club Publix and they're staring at ice cream. It's like, hey, you getting ice cream too? Yeah, me too. Third party walks up and says, hey, how do you guys know each other? Well, the wrong answer is that we're in group therapy together because one of them just outed the other one. We speak frankly about the need to tell white lies. If a third party is ever with 2 group members through random chance at Club Publix or Starbucks on campus or at the library, the instruction is we know each other from around campus. We make a priority on upholding group confidentiality for the content of what we speak as well as our identity as members. This becomes further complicated because all of you are looking at me on an electronic device. And it doesn't matter if it's a cell phone, a pad, a laptop, or a desktop. It is radiating light with my horrible features, and it is radiating sound from my horrible voice. Everyone can see and hear if they have access to the machine. So when we're starting group, we now ask, is everybody in a secure location where they cannot be seen and heard by others? Very important, because I'm not really aware what Miguel's doing. I can kind of see Miguel, but I don't know. Misha, he turned off his thing. He might be doing something wild, knowing Misha. So, I can't see. These things happen in your groups. Get the rules really clear at the beginning. I also think that once we're all clear and confidential, we need to deal with trouble. And trouble usually happens when someone gets hurt, irritated, or resentful. We ask that all group members agree to resolve any differences or difficulties they're having with group members or the leader as quickly as possible. We understand that sometimes people leave group, go home, and then begin to have feelings a few hours later. If that were to happen to you, come back next week and talk to us about that. We want to know. It's interesting how that works out. A lot of people who are kind of fearful about expressing things, maybe in the family of origin, it wasn't too safe to speak frankly. Slowly but surely, people in group come back and say, well, last week somebody said this, and it's really interesting what happens when they have those kind of rapprochement events in group. They're usually a whole lot better than the way they went in earlier life. Or if there are people who are having difficulty with peers contemporaneously, it usually goes a whole lot better than it went with their peers. Group is like a microcosm. It's like a greenhouse. We deal with real world stuff in there. And if we can set up our rules to enhance our opportunity to function reasonably through normal life struggles, people can achieve higher levels of adaptation by understanding the reenactments that the group allows. We ask that all members acknowledge contact with any group member outside of group back to group. So if you were at Publix and you were looking at ice cream and Larry comes by and goes, whoa, you're here too. Wow, you're getting chocolate, I want strawberry. And that's the end of your thing. We ask that in the next group meeting, one of them come and say, hey, I ran into Larry at the ice cream place. He's doing strawberry and I'm doing chocolate. And maybe there's some discussion, maybe there's not. It's not that is not my reason for the rule. My reason for the rule is I want to be really clear that subgrouping is destructive to the group. And if members get together outside of the group needs to know. It's very, very well received. Everybody likes this rule. And I think in the end, it has reduced a lot of the difficulties that I experienced as a member in my earlier years. I was in a lot of groups where the rules are really weird and intense, like no last names. Don't get to the office more than 5 minutes before the meeting starts. You're not allowed to talk to anybody out in the parking lot. Well, I'll be damned. Everyone gets there early. Everyone's hanging out in the parking lot. They want to go for beers. People want to like have affairs. I mean, all kinds of stuff happened in those groups. I've smothered all that with a very polite statement of please acknowledge all contact between group members outside of group back to group. I have none of that trouble. I'd encourage you to do the same thing. Clear description of fees. Fees are a place where people get into trouble. And you know, fees are really important. And I'll do another CE on how to make a living being a group therapist, because group therapists can do better than individual therapists. You know, it's an interesting phenomenon. We start to do a group and we get a couple of referrals. So we do a group screen and go, oh, that's a great one. And then next week we get another group screen, go, okay, that's 2. And then the next week I get 2 referrals and I'm at 4, which is such a horrible number because do I start with 4 or do I wait for 5 or 6? But it's been 4 weeks. That first referral that first group screen I did 4 weeks ago. How are they feeling? They wanted to come join group. I got them all excited. And now I'm saying, wait. It's a bit of a problem. My advice for that circumstance is if group's Tuesday at 4, call everyone a Tuesday at 4. If I've got 4 people in screen and I've got the wisdom to not start at 4, but to wait till I get to 5, 6, because maybe I have the idea that I can get to 7 or 8 in the subsequent weeks after it's gotten started. And with a process group, I don't have to start everyone at the same time. That's one of the nice things is people can come or go. The old adage is that a wooden boat can last forever because you can replace all of its parts. And so too with the process group. I run a process group presently. That was the first process group I started in February of 2001, excuse me. I gave that away twice and I've taken it back. And the culture has really remained strong. So groups can change members and leaders and still survive. I believe strongly that we initiate every meeting where no 2 people have met before by going through the rules and doing a basic introduction. This is a standardized phenomenon. If someone spends a few semesters in group with me, they're going to do this a bunch of times. And one of the ways in which I can observe how people's self-assessment is transforming is by the ways in which they introduce themselves. And frequently when we have a group of 7 or 8 and we got a new member or 2 who come in, the group will comment about the transitions of people's self-descriptions over time. And as people become more courageous and able to talk about the things that they have dealt with, they're far more forthcoming in their self-descriptions. So I think this is actually, you know, kind of helpful. Okay, it's 12:38. This is a 1-hour thing. We've got about 22 minutes. You got a choice. I want to do some role playing and I want to do some group screens. We can do one of 2 things. I could run group screens for an online training group for mental health professionals who want to learn about group and talk about their own issues they're facing as they learn more about group therapy. So I could put a call out for anybody who wants to do a group screen with me here and now for a therapist group. A group that's for normal functioning people who are mental health professionals who wish to learn about group. And we frequently encourage people to do an group experience themselves, and this would be that. It would be a curated group for professionals who want to learn more about group, with the understanding that most of these people wouldn't know much about group because this is a basic course. The other thing I might do, which is I think a little simpler, is just run a generic group screen for a generic referral. Which would you prefer, folks?
It might be easier if everyone wants to use their reaction button, and we'll offer the two choices again. So how does that
Choice
sound?
one,
Choice one would be a group screen.
online training group for professionals who want to learn about group.
All right, let's pause and give a little thumbs up if you want to choose that.
I just got one there, just two. I got two now.
Okay, it looks like then let's move to three. Let's move to choice two, which is a generic.
Just a general process group.
Now,
Okay, so we're going to do that. Okay, that's where it is. Okay.
okay.
So let me talk about what this is. This is a general group for adults. We have, we deal with a variety of normal range life adjustment issues in people who are experiencing some difficulty with inhibition of social or occupational function due to symptoms that they may have had for some time, or perhaps they've experienced a more recent life adjustment issue. So all these people are functioning well. This is not an issue of psychopathology. This is an issue of people who recognize that they have some inefficiencies going on in their approach to things and are interested in a generic group. Do I have anyone who wants to do a group screen with me? The context would be that you were referred by your individual therapist. Deb, you want to do this?
Sure. If no one else wants to volunteer, I'm happy to help. Did you get any other?
Deb and I work a lot together, so if anyone else want to do this, fine, I'm happy. Okay, everybody wants you to do it. So we're going to do this as a telehealth. Let's just presume that we have just got on. Hi, Deborah.
Hi there.
Thanks for contacting me. So your primary referred you to me for group, and I'd like to just chat with you a little bit about that. You up for this?
Yeah, I'm a little nervous, but I'm ready.
Can I ask what you're nervous about?
Well, I've really never done group before, and I'm just really anxious. I don't know if I could really talk in front of other people very easily.
That's not an uncommon feeling. Do you know much about group therapy?
Not really, just what I've seen on TV and maybe in movies.
You know, TV and movies just have done us a tremendous disservice. It's usually we're doing stupid things and we look foolish, which is, great for the creative people because they can take all their defensiveness and, trash something that might be helpful. The group I'm inviting you into or might be inviting you into has 3 women and 4 men, and we're looking for another woman. We tend to run with 8. Everyone's professional, everyone's working. Some folks have families. And we have a variety of different kinds of issues that we're dealing with. Are you clear about what your primary counselor referred you to us for, what they'd like you to achieve in group?
I think to work on maybe being more assertive in my relationships, and I've had, a recent breakup, and I tend to be kind of quiet and a little bit reserved, and she thought maybe I could benefit from talking more, I think.
That's sort of the description that I got, and it sounds like both what I was told and what you're saying line up pretty well. That's a good thing. One of my favorite ideas about the group is that it approximates the larger society better than an individual session. When your therapist or I am seeing someone individual, I got the responsibility of representing the community standard about what's reasonable and not reasonable, as we have discussions about symptoms or experiences that many people are unclear about. And it's a very different situation than to be in group and to have a group therapist and 5-7 other members. We really find that people derive a lot more relief from discussions that line up with other members. I think the group becomes very powerful. You have to remember that we are born into families where we get a sense of ourselves through our interaction with our primary caretakers. And that sets up life for us to be very connected to those primary caretakers. We get a sense of our personality in those first 3-4 years. And then about the time that our personality is seized, we go off to school. And we leave that place and we make friendship choices, which I think are platonic. And the most important thing about the platonic choice is it's frequently outside the family's point of view. So kids choose friends that parents might not know about. And the platonic choice is a huge factor. The group, much like family, allows a group member to come back and talk about things. As we've moved out of our family and gone out into the world and begun to compare ourselves to others and have rapport with others, there's always that lingering sense about the family. And I think that the group is a place that allows us to reconsider our place in the family and give some options later on in life for some determinant decisions that are made early on. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I had never really thought about that.
So if we can get you comfortable in group, we probably will talk about a lot of the same things you've been talking about in your individual, but we're going to do it in the basis of the group. Does this interest you?
Yeah, I just still feel a little anxious. Do you think, do I have to talk at every group, or will I have to, what if I feel so nervous that I can't talk very much in the first group?
To be frank with you, I have had people who have not been able to say anything other than cry. And sometimes people cry in group until they can stop crying, and then they get their words. I don't think that's that uncommon in my experience. I think we would probably, if that's your circumstance, maybe talk about that so that the group's aware.
Okay.
Let's talk rules for a second, because I think that really might help. So I'm going to save time, and we have the confidentiality that we already went through, right? Which is the confidentiality issue for the content of what we speak, and the confidentiality for our identity as members. And that also moves on to the idea of acknowledging contact between group members. So we've kind of gone through a bunch of those in the earlier discussion as we went through the checklist items. So as we explain all of that to a potential group member, my experience has been that their anxiety comes way down. When it doesn't in this situation, what I'm going to do, and back into role play, is, well, let's talk a little bit about what the first meeting might be like. I think that might be helpful to you.
Okay.
The first issue is I can't tell the group who a potential new member is. And I can't tell a potential new member who the group is, because I have to maintain confidentiality as the psychologist. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, that's good. I might know somebody in there.
Well, that's what we're kind of trying to work on here. If we invite you to group, you'll get a Zoom link and you'll be in a waiting room. And when group time starts, we'll push a button and a bunch of faces will appear on the screen. This is a very important first moment, because that's the first time you're going to be able to see who's actually going to be in group. And what I'd encourage you to do is to be prepared, because you look around and if you see someone you can't be with, you just delete out. And if you delete out, we'll talk on the phone later. But I will know it's because you saw someone you couldn't be in group with. Now, for those of us who do universities, and for those of us who do small rural communities, any place where you can have lots of people bunched up on top of each other, you gotta do this. You know, when I was practicing in LA, it was almost never that I had people who knew each other. But when I'm practicing in Tallahassee on FSU campus, it's a regular event. So I think that if we prep people about how to handle that first eclipse where you can see what's happening. Oh, it's real bodies. Oh, look, there's men bodies, there's women bodies. I'm not sure about that one and all that kind of stuff. I think that's really an important decision point. So I'm a big believer in helping people to understand how to bail out, because nobody wants to be in group with their ex-lover or their nemesis or the bad roommate. Group therapists got to be on top of this stuff. We got to have bailout plans.
So if I just casually know them or had a class with them once, that would be okay?
See there, and that is the question that always follows, which is, many times people are able to have very useful, positive group experiences with people whom they have met before. My advice to you would be, if you have much of a relationship, bail out. And if you don't have, thank you. If you don't have much of a relationship, maybe you sat behind them in algebra, I don't think that's going to matter that much. If you had a knockdown drag out over a third party who you both had affections for, bad plan. Does that help?
Yeah, that makes sense. That feels better.
So what will happen is if we make it past the point where you haven't bailed out, I will say we have a new member, and the way we're going to start is by going over the rules. And we'll do the rules again. And if I did the group screen with you at 10 o'clock in the morning and it's 4 o'clock now in the afternoon and we're doing the group, you're going to hear the rules again. I want people to know the rules. I say the rules every time any two people did not show. If I brought Deb in group this afternoon, but Larry wasn't there and Larry showed up next week, we do the rules when Larry came back, because I want Larry to do the rules with Deb so that Deb knows that Larry knows the rules and everyone hears it over and over and over again. The repetition is really helpful. I think it makes clear to everybody the agreement that we need to be in. Most people have no idea that a treatment agreement is necessary to run group therapy properly. And I think when a lot of individual therapists begin to experiment with crossing over, one of the ways they get into trouble is by not understanding that you have to have a group agreement, because the group as a whole is a very powerful thing. It's so powerful we can watch it and we can listen to it and we can infer progress of individuals and progress of the group by observing the group as a whole. And that's a difficult thing. Okay, so my lecture has invaded my group screen. The real point I wanted to get across here was the importance of getting the rules to the potential member and explaining what the first meeting is going to be like, because that makes the anxiety tolerable when there's a plan. Any questions? We got a few minutes.
I was wondering a little bit about how you have the conversation if you don't think someone would be a good fit for a group, kind of how you like screen them out, since that can be sensitive.
Yeah.
So Deborah, sitting here talking with you, I'm left with the feeling that the group I have been thinking about is not going to be a good fit for you. And I'd like to tell you why. I think this group tends to get a little rambunctious. And I think if I put you in a rambunctious group, that might not be a great thing, given what you've been saying to me. How do you feel about my saying that to you?
Well, it feels like you care about how I feel, and that you want me to be in a group with a better fit.
You know, I do, and I have one on Wednesday, and I don't have an opening, but one's going to be coming.
Okay, I appreciate that.
I think you might do better in a group having a larger percentage of people feel the way you feel about a discovering, disclosing dialogue. And I think I would rather have you wait a couple of months and go into something that's going to be a really good fit for you and push you to get into something that might be too fast. You know, a lot of people start running and then give up after 2 days because they can't walk any longer. They're so sore. So we don't want to have that occur to you with group. Ashley, did that do a good job?
That was helpful. Thank you.
What'd you like about it?
I was surprised by just how transparent you were. That from things you kind of picked up of like, there's a theme of being rambunctious in the group, and I can tell that this would be pretty overwhelming for you. I was impressed that you were that transparent about it, and then talked through kind of like what a different game plan would be. So she hopefully didn't feel quite as like rejected or that it was her fault.
I don't know about you guys, but I've talked to a lot of different therapists in my time. I've talked to them when I've been the patient. I've talked to them when I've been the colleague. I've talked to them a lot of times. And I'll tell you something, transparency is where it's at. Would you want a therapist who's BSing you or spinning? No. A presentation like Deb's, it would be destructive. My colleague who told Deb to call me because he thought or she thought I might be a good therapist, I gotta be a good therapist. I really want to emphasize that the Florida Group Psychotherapy Society got started because we all need to be able to fill our groups. And group therapists never have trouble. In the time of managed care, which I did my entire first 20 years in Los Angeles in managed care, and it was locked up tight. And the group therapists didn't do group managed care, because the group therapist got all the referrals for the people who were walking away muttering, going, that didn't work. And when group therapy fees are usually less than half of the fee of an individual, it just makes really good sense. And even though it's half of the fee of an individual, if you're a competent group therapist and you're running a group with 8, you're making 3 times the dollars you individual. So Robin Hood. You bring your skills, you reduce the fees, and you increase the access to the underinsured, plus your dollars are pretty good. It's 12:57. Is that the lanyard being pulled?
I think so. People are checking out.
Do we have time for one question?
Go.
This is Ken. I work at the VA. Pretty new to this, but what do you do with somebody who's wildly disruptive or keeps bringing the group to, subjects that you don't want, like politics or race, religion, various disgruntled things? Any guidance on that?
We have a name. We call this a problem member. And problem member is something we have to identify, diagnose, intervene with, and then make decisions. First thing to do, have an individual. Larry, you're being a little disruptive in the group room. Are you aware of this? That's my direct and transparent. What do you think's happening, Larry? Why are you doing that? You know what? It melts like butter in a pan. It's going to be about someone's giving him a feeling which is making him behave in a way that historically has made him feel better. It probably doesn't see that it also has cost. So might as well deal with the issue. Nothing happens in group that doesn't happen everywhere else. What happens everywhere else happens in group. We just have a contract to talk about it. The group therapist needs to be on top of this stuff, and there's nothing wrong with having subsequent group screens. I kind of take a lot of kids who are difficult group members in other groups and put them in mine. And, I don't know if you guys remember the kids song, Little Rabbit Foo-Foo, bouncing through the forest, picking up the field mice and bopping them on the head. Well, that's what we do. We bop them on the head. I mean, you can't do that in my group. So these are the kinds of things we're we're dealing with. I don't know, this is quick, but I'm happy to come back and do other kinds of things. I'll be doing more of these. I actually want to do this as a 2.5 hour with CE. I wrote this up, and we're going to reoffer it. And I'll do it a little longer. And I want to workshop a bunch of different role plays of problem members. I want to role play reticent members. I want to do a variety of them because I think that'll be a good thing. So we'll come back and do this as a half day. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, Sister Carol.
Thank
Hi.
you, Josh.
Thanks. Thank you. Have a great day.
Don't go away.
Don't go away.